Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Bob Mendelsohn, and this is the Bob's Your Uncle podcast. Today we speak with Julie Gunn, who leads a franchise of an international craze called Ceroc, a fun and entertaining dance method that's sweeping the world. Plan to have your socks stay on as we whirl around in the studio. Thanks for joining me for this Bob's Your Uncle podcast Season 1, Episode 12. Of note, the opinions are strictly my own and those of any of my guests. You can now find us and comment directly to us wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple iTunes, Pandora, and the list goes on. We have a lot of topics to discuss. Even so, on the Bob's Your Uncle podcast, you are part of the show. We do want to see and hear you. Send us a message on Facebook or video one to us on Instagram. In the weeks to come, we'll speak about Major League Baseball groundskeeping, country music, Jewish DNA tests, and so much more. Let's see where the spirit takes us. Wherever you're getting your podcast, that's where we will be. Thanks for being with us these 18 minutes. Historical marker of the week. On this date in history, 17 May, we've got some European struggles. In 1742, the Battle of Chotusitz, a small village in what we later called Czechoslovakia. Prussia, led by Frederick the Great, defeats Austria. Then exactly 2 years later, again on 17 May 1744, the French army takes Austrian Netherlands. Not a good decade for the Austrians, but characteristic of European history that one country tries to take over another, and on it goes. Has anything ever changed? And also on this date, 17 May 1859, Australian Rules Football, first Laws of the Game was published, and that's the historical marker of the week. I met Julie Gunn in 2018 when my wife was away looking after a couple of our grandchildren in the United States. Nothing dark and sinister in this meeting. Julie runs a program which is part of an international dance craze called Ceroc. Let's find out if her work will fit with yours. Shalom, Julie. I'm not the best of dancers, which is not hyperbole, but I had a couple of sports friends who recommended I give this dance style a go. Do you think is Ceroc for everyone?
Yes, Bob, absolutely. It's for everybody. I always say that Ceroc is the people's dance because they don't necessarily have to have aspirations to be an amazing professional dancer. You just can have a want to come along to some classes, be a bit social and try a few dance steps. So it's definitely the people's dance. Ceroc is for everyone.
Okay, back up a bit. Big picture. How would you describe this dance method?
Well, it's a partner dance. So two people connected together, one leading and one following, which can be any combination of people nowadays. It's based on the old jive, on the old rock and roll and jive. So Ceroc is the trademark name for the dance style. The actual style itself is commonly known as modern jive. So not quite as fast as the old rock and roll, definitely not as bouncy and swirly, and definitely no need to wear rock and roll skirts and teddy boy haircuts. It's to modern music, but it's kind of a similar style to Ceroc. Also, some people to rock and roll. Sorry. Also, some people compare it to salsa, a little bit ballroom. So it's a meld of a number of different styles with a lot of creativity and a lot of flexibility to add in your own flair.
It seems fairly social as partners switch through every opening lesson. Is that off-putting to some?
Yeah, especially at the moment with the COVID concerns. So Ceroc has traditionally always been known as very social, a very social dance. And the great thing about it is that you can come along as a single and in a completely safe and unintimidating environment, find partners to dance with. But some people do find the swapping of partners are concerned, as I say, especially at the moment. So we're definitely open to people staying with their own partners in the class for whatever reason they may have, which may be the COVID concern, or it may be that they're on a date night with their husband or wife and they just want to dance with them, or they're learning for a specific purpose, such as they might be getting married or going to a function and they just want to stay with that partner. So that's absolutely fine for people to do that as well.
What other advantages are there to having an evening in a Ceroc class or Ceroc evening?
The big one is the social. So our classes go, usually the night goes from 7:15 p.m. until 10 p.m. But it's very rare that the bulk of the class get home anytime before midnight, because usually at 10 o'clock, they're all downstairs into the bar to have a coffee or a wine and have a chat with people. And there's been a lot of friendships and a lot of social connections that have come out of Ceroc. And it's really been life-changing for a lot of people, especially if they have come to Ceroc because of a situation in their life that has brought them to us, such as a divorce or a recently moved to the area, or just wanting to get out and find new friends. So I definitely would say that the social is a big extra advantage, as well as the actual ability to dance and learn to dance. So much so that we have had a number of weddings that have come out of people connecting at Ceroc, and we have a page on our website.
People met each other at Ceroc and then ended up dating and getting married.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And while that's not what Ceroc is about, it's not a dating scene or a singles scene. It's just a natural connection that happens from people of the same mindset coming along to dance and be social. And these things happen.
How did you get involved?
I got involved because when I was a teenager, I used to do ballroom dancing and other types of dancing. And after moving to Australia, I wanted to pick that up again. And not only did I want to pick up my dance skills again, but I wanted to find a social scene because I knew nobody in Australia, no family, no friends here at that time. So my first step was to search for a ballroom class because that's what I had done before. But I found that wasn't really for me. It was giving me the dance skills, but it wasn't giving me the social outlet because it was very, go to the class at this time, leave at this time, not many people to interact with, and there wasn't the social connection and the other opportunities that come out of what we have in Ceroc. So I tried that first, and then I stumbled across this Ceroc in a magazine, which was at the time, I don't think it exists anymore in Sydney, but it was 9 to 5 magazine. They used to hand it out at the train stations. And I saw this ad for Ceroc, which I had never heard of, and saw the spelling, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know how to spell it. It's Ceroc. I've seen all sorts of spellings of Ceroc starting with S and all sorts of things, but this strange name of this unusual dance intrigued me. And I called and I went along to my first class, which was at Mossman in 1995, I think it was, maybe 1994. And then that's it. The rest is history.
Wow. So you came from what country did you come?
England originally. Yeah. So I grew up in England. I lived for about a year and a half in Portugal. And then I came to Australia and as a backpacker originally, only intending to be here for a year, and I'm still here.
27 years later. Are there variations of Ceroc in other countries that might use another label?
Yeah, absolutely. Ceroc itself is very big in the UK. There's a very big franchise system for Ceroc over there, but there are other schools in the UK as well with different names. To be honest, I don't know a lot of the names of them over there, but I know in Australia even we do have schools in different states with different names, such as Le Step, Move Your Body, which are in Queensland, Dance Vibe in Newcastle, Le Bop and Step One in Melbourne. Because as I said earlier, Ceroc is a trademark, and I own that trademark in Australia. So the other schools may teach a similar style, but it's not legally able to be called Ceroc.
Is there not a national consideration? You mentioned Newcastle and Brizzy, and isn't there a desire for the whole nation to be under one rubric, or is there a monetary fight?
Yeah, it's I think that the market here is quite different in Australia. Like that's definitely how it's done in the UK, and there's one central head office, I suppose you would call it, in London, and they franchise out all across the UK. But I'm not sure why that never really happened in Australia. But we're all very established. Like all of those schools have been around for a long, long time, and we're all very established with our own names, and we all connect together very well, even though we're not coming under the umbrella of Ceroc. So it kind of works the way it is. And we have had, outlets in Adelaide and also Canberra. But now we're just focusing, especially at the moment, because the market is very fragile. Everything we do, since the COVID pandemic has changed now. So we're just focusing on Sydney. And we used to be very big. We used to be, as I say, in different states. We used to have a lot of classes in Sydney, but we're just focusing now on being, the best rather than the biggest, I suppose. So 2 or 3 nights a week is what we're currently doing, and that's kind of good for now.
I love it, and for a man with both feet on the left side of his body, this is a pretty good testimony. I really enjoy it. Where do you think Ceroc will be in 5 years?
You know what? If you'd asked me that 10 years ago, where it would be in 5 years, I would have said, it would be in a lot of extra places, and we would have a lot of extra classes. If you'd asked me that 5 years ago of where we would be now, there's no way I would have been able to predict where we are now with the awful situation of the COVID pandemic. So where we are now is not where I thought we would be 5 years ago, through no fault of our own. So it's really hard to say in 5 years. I'd like to say we'll be back to where we were pre-COVID, but it's very hard to predict that. And I think as long as Ceroc is continuing to change people's lives, even on a small scale in Sydney, I think I'll be happy with that.
That sounds great. Tell me, is there anything else you'd want the Bob's Your Uncle podcast people to know about Ceroc, about Julie Gunn, about life in Sydney, about your favorite Vegemite sandwich? No, anything you want to tell us that we haven't covered?
Oh, I suppose just in relation to Ceroc is that I think everybody, especially at the moment, life is short. You've got to get out and do stuff. You've got to get out and enjoy yourself and take each day as it comes. So get out there and try a new skill, whether it be Ceroc or whether it be another kind of dancing or whether it be something not dancing related at all. Just get out there and give it a go. With Ceroc, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, they might be in their 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever age they are. And so many people have said to me, I wish I'd found this 20 years ago. So you've just got to take the opportunities while you can, look for some new outlets to be social or to get fit, and just enjoy life and dance like there's no tomorrow.
Julie, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for leading Ceroc in Sydney. I'm a beneficiary of that, and wherever else it's being modern jive danced around the country and around the world, I hope others find the pleasure that I've found, and certainly you've found in it. Yeah. Thanks so much, Julie.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Bye.
Amanda McInnes is both my travel agent and the sponsor of this podcast, and it will help all three of us, you, me, and Amanda, if you book your next trip with her, including hotel and flights and all things tourist. Good morning, Amanda. Amanda has some of her own comments and forward roll about what we're going to address when I get back to Sydney in the next week or so. I think she sounds pretty good. You reckon a voiceover career is in the future for this mother of three and travel agent to many?
As the world opens back up and travel and adventures become the norm, we have a unique opportunity to change the way we travel, the way we see the world, and to use travel as a force for good. We know travel changes us, so join Bob and myself over the next couple of weeks as we explore the ways in which you can create change through travel. We'll be discussing things like carbon offsetting flights, slow and sustainable travel, responsible and ethical operators, volunteering, and why all of this is important. Tune in to see how you can make an impact with your next adventure.
Thanks, Amanda. That sounds like fun. Contact her on bit.ly, Lee being L-Y, stroke Amanda365. That'll take you right to her page. Every week we read from the #1 bestseller of nonfiction of all time, the Bible. And this week is no different. Today we read from Jeremiah, chapter 31. Then the virgin will rejoice in the dance, and the young man and the old together, for I will turn their mourning into joy, and will comfort them and give them joy for their sorrow. Do you have a comment or question? Do you agree with us? Hit us up on bobmendo@aol.com or on Twitter or Instagram, and we'll read your views next week. Don't forget to post a review on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening, and share our podcast with your mates, your friends, your enemies. Thanks for helping us get known out there. And please follow or subscribe to the podcast, hit like, help us get all the good speak we can get. And don't forget to book all your travel needs with Amanda McInnes at travelpartners.com.au. She knows her stuff. And we'll talk to you next week. Until then, from me, Bob Mendelsohn, when things seem bleak or uncertain, look up to God. He's in his heaven, and Bob's your uncle. Shalom for now.